All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, we have the one, the only, we have Speech of Arrested Development and the producer of their brand new record, Configure, right here, right now on the line. How are you guys doing this evening?
We're doing great, man. Doing really good.
And I first and foremost have to say to both of you guys are the dynamic duo. You guys put together masterpieces, so thank you guys so much for your contribution to hip-hop.
And that means a lot. Thank you. Me and Configure met this year, and I heard a track, or really an album he did with my friend Jaheed, and we reached out and started collaborating on music, and the rest has been Don't Fight Your Demons.
But also, I gotta ask you, Speech, just a few Arrested Development questions, man, because like it's been on my brain for years, ever since I first picked up your one of your guys' first records. But I have to ask you, man, like as we already know, you actually yourself and Headliner actually founded the group. But I have to ask you, how did you meet the other members? Like, what's the story behind that iconic hip hop group?
Well, actually, I founded the group and met Headliner. So what happened was I went to Art Institute in Atlanta, which is a little art school right in the heart of Atlanta. And Headliner, who I didn't know at the time, was a student there. And I put up a flyer because I wanted to start a group. And I was looking for a DJ because I used to DJ and I became an MC. And so I was looking for a DJ. And so he was looking at the flyer intently, and I was like, yo, what's your name? And so we struck up a conversation. I was like, I was trying to start this group, and maybe we could talk and see if you one of the dudes that could be part of this crew. And of course, he became a very integral part of the crew. So that's how it started. Then the other members, me and Headliner, was sort of like a sound system, like a Jamaican sound system, where I'm the MC, but I always felt like Soul to Soul out of the UK, actually. I'm an MC, and he was the DJ at the time, and we would invite people on stage, whether it be MCs, singers, dancers, painters, poets, and drummers, like African drummers. So it was this sort of sound system collective. And a lot of the people that got on stage with me and him ended up coming from show to show, and they became group members later. So we had about 20 members of the group. We was Wu-Tang before Wu-Tang.
I was actually thinking about that as well, because I knew you guys had a gang of members. You guys had tons of members. So when in my head, always growing up, I was like, man, these guys were actually Wu-Tang before they were Wu-Tang. I used to say that to myself, man. But hey, you never know. You guys started the trend. You never know. The Wu-Tang Clan might have got that from you guys.
Hey, maybe. I don't know. But we definitely were. We were doing some Earth, Wind, and Fire type numbers on stage. It was crazy. Definitely.
And also, you guys are actually two-time Grammy award-winning group. I have to ask you, how did it feel being up there, just receiving those Grammys? Because unfortunately, the Grammy Awards do not really recognize hip hop. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it was a double-edged sword because the Grammys didn't recognize hip hop during the televised portion, and so in hip hop we were really fighting the Grammys. Like, some of us were protesting the Grammys, others of us were striving to make sure that hip-hop got its just due on the program. And when we won, it was a dream come true on one side of it, because I grew up in the 70s and 80s dreaming about that stage, just hoping that maybe in my wildest dreams I could be on that stage and have the same influence that the artists that I was watching all those years were having on me. So that was a dream. But on the other side of it, we did get the goal accomplished of having them televise the hip-hop section of the Grammy. And us, Naughty by Nature, won the year before us. The year before us, Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince won, and they weren't televised, if I'm not...
They boycotted it, didn't they? Yeah.
They boycotted because they weren't televised.
Right.
And so it was a movement to make sure that hip-hop was recognized. So that's been part of the movement, and we were part of that.
And I also remember as well, I believe it was the early 90s, Naughty by Nature actually won a Grammy for their Poverty's Paradise record. And they wasn't even televised. They actually got told they were winning the Grammys on the red carpet. So they just like, I guess they yelled through the curtain and just said like we won or something like that.
Exactly, and that was the biggest fight for us in the hip hop world, was to make sure not just at the Grammys, but all around the world, that the music was gaining the respect that it deserved. So it was very much a attitude of, we're not just musicians, but we're activists for this movement called hip hop.
Can you remember in '94 when Andre 3000 said, "The South's got something to say"? How the Source Awards?
Definitely
believe it was '94. Well,
Source Awards.
The South already had something to say 2 years before. That's what I'm saying. You know, with a 4 times platinum and a Grammy-winning album. So
exactly right.
And it's just, yeah. But basically, this conversation only happened this week when somebody was like, "Oh, you know, respect Outkast and the ATL originators." I was like, pump the brakes. No, they're not. But this is why, and they didn't like it. So a lot of people like to be revisionist history, and I don't like that.
We were talking about. I agree with you, Work, and we were talking about revisionist history. It's so popular, and it's like, you know, the truth of the matter is, it was definitely 2 years earlier where we sold 4 million albums, Grammys right out of the ATL, and there was no large movement coming from the ATL prior to us in hip hop. So,
And Configure, going back to you here for a minute, man. Before we went live on this interview, I was like scoping through your social media accounts, and I could tell you're a lifelong hip hop fan, of course. So I have to ask you, this year when you actually got connected with Speech of one of the biggest hip hop groups of all time, how does it feel just to actually work alongside someone that you probably grew up listening to?
Oh, bro. I've said this in a few interviews before. It's like literally full circle. It's like. It's someone who I literally grew up listening to, like you just said. I told Speech this. I was, rapping along to Mr. Wendell in Tennessee at like 11, 12 years old. This person should be doing so. I remember buying their album with like real anticipation, and and actually I've told Speech this crazy story that I got my heart broken because I borrowed I gave the CD to my friend. He took it home. He basically dog-eared it. He got his greasy fingers all over the inlay, and he scratched on the front cover and stuff. And I was like, give it back. And I was devastated. And then Speech said to me, this is like when I first got to know him, he was like, "Don't worry, I'll hook you with the vinyl." I was like, "Okay, that's a good second bet." It only took me sort of like nearly 30 years to upgrade, but that's a good thing, right? Exactly. I grew up in AD. Like, how could I not? I'm from that era, and they were pivotal, absolutely huge and pivotal. And it's a true full circle moment to be representing with a guy that I literally grew up with, and that's crazy. And not many people get to say that.
And it must be crazy as well, man, because as we already know, Speech, like you're in America and you're actually in the United Kingdom, so it just proves sometimes the internet is really a good thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's benefits, to being able to use this technology, because we weren't able to do this. And the times when we tried to do this in the 90s, we used to have to use a radio box that some of the international radio stations use in order to go back and forth with ideas. This is way faster and way more convenient. So I dare say me and Configure might not have worked with each other at all if it wasn't for technology. So I'm very grateful.
Probably true. That's actually scarily true, because me and my dude, we gel so well. We share a certain philosophy of hip hop. We work in similar ways. It's ideologies and stuff. And to think that because of location and locality and distance, that we wouldn't have worked together the way that we have extensively worked together, that would have been bad for not just me, but for hip hop. Like,
I agree.
And and so big up technology and big up the internet. The internet is being trashed for a lot of things, including Mr. Trump and his people. But besides that, it's been good for the likes of me and Speech and hip hop.
I agree. There's good and bad to
this, right?
Yep. There's good and bad to this technology. I mentioned it in an earlier Arrested Development song called "In the Sunshine," where I said ain't nothing wrong with technology. It just depends who controls it. So that's what it's really about. And so if you do it for positivity, then it's great.
And also, Speech, going back to you here for a moment, back in the 90s, your group was actually approached by film director Spike Lee to compose a song for his biopic on the life of Malcolm X. I have to ask you, what was it like actually working on that project? And of course, how does it feel to know that you're one of the most, you're revolutionary hip-hop artists, but you actually got to represent Malcolm X? How did it feel working on that project?
It felt like heaven for me because, first of all, Malcolm X is literally my top 3 favorite people in the world. And second of all, to do a picture with one of my top directors ever, which is Spike Lee, and the actor that was going to portray Malcolm was one of my favorite actors, Denzel Washington. And just to be able to have him in the studio when we were recording Revolution, he was one of the people on the mic screaming, "Revolution!" I mean, the whole thing was surreal, just being able to do that. And for me, you know, I was following in the lineage of some incredible hip-hop artists. One was Public Enemy, who did Do the Right Thing and Fight the Power, which was absolutely pivotal and amazing piece of hip-hop art. And then I also got to follow up one of my favorite hip-hop groups, Gangstar, who did Jazz Thing for Mo Better Blues. So when you look at the lineage of those hip-hop groups that have been able to do some stuff for Spike Lee movies, we're right in line with that, and I'm grateful for that.
And Speech, where did you sample that on Revolution? Where did you sample that from?
I collected a lot of South African records because I went over to South Africa, and we were the first, to my knowledge, the first African American artist in the United States to donate to the ANC while Mandela was still alive. And so we met up with Mandela. We did speeches with him. I had various footage and pictures of all of us, and I collected tons of ANC movement records and records that were fighting against apartheid, and I used that for the song Revolution because my hope was to tie the two struggles together. Like, this was bigger than just the struggle for black civil rights and black freedom in America. It was also the struggle for those in South Africa who was fighting against apartheid in other places. So I wanted to tie that all together.
And also, when we're still on the topic of African American revolutionaries, their speech in 1994, your group actually shared the stage with Nelson Mandela at a rally to commemorate the anniversary of the 1976 riots. I have to ask you, what was it like actually sharing the stage with Nelson Mandela?
It was one of my biggest dreams come true. Nelson Mandela, to me, is the manifestation of conviction, compassion, and perseverance. And he is just an extraordinary human being. So I got to see firsthand, when we were in South Africa with him, what it looks like when the people get their president the way they want it. Like, Nelson Mandela was released from prison, and he became the first president there in South Africa that was black and representing the people.
That's right, yeah.
It was mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing. Yeah. Just to see the people's reaction to him and how I felt, too. It was a high-top moment. And, I'm very, very grateful for that experience.
And also, the one thing I've always wanted to know, because growing up, like, every kid watched Sesame Street, you know, and you guys actually performed back in the 90s on that television show. I have to ask you, was it really difficult being a hip-hop act actually going on Sesame Street? Like, did they censor you guys or anything of that nature? Like, what was that experience like, just being on Sesame Street on PBS?
Again, it was a double-edged sword. Because for me, as a hip-hop producer, it had never been done before. So they made the music and the track, and I hated the track and I hated the music, but I was extremely happy and excited to be on Sesame Street because I grew up on Sesame Street. So it was a big sort of pillar in American culture, and yet, because we were the first, I didn't really know how to navigate, because they usually did the music for the artists, and so I wish I was as knowledgeable as later hip-hop artists that would do it, like Common, who, instead of using their music, he got a producer that knows hip-hop to do a great beat and really do a great job, whereas ours was cute, but it didn't represent my musicality and what I really wanted to do on Sesame Street. So that's the double-edged sword with that, but I loved it. It still was a great experience.
And with the Sesame Street, I have to ask you, did you actually get to meet any of, like, the characters and whatnot? Like, I know it's probably a corny question, but, like, because, like you said, you grew up watching it, but, like, did you ever get to meet, like, kind of like one of your childhood favorites?
Of course, Big Bird, Ernie, Bert.
How tall was Big Bird?
Big Bird is probably like 6'2" or something like that. Very, very tall.
Well, I'm 6'6", so yeah, I'm tall as well.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know you were that tall to figure. Wow, that's
I'm the same height as Tony Arnold.
That's amazing.
Yep.
You be looking down on Big Bird from that height.
Exactly. The fluffy blonde hair, right?
Exactly. Wow.
Buck and Figure, going back to you, man, I also noticed on your Facebook profile page that you actually have a new album out yourself titled Forward Future. I have to ask you, man, can you tell us a bit more about that record? And also, if the listeners want to snag themselves a copy, how can they go about getting a copy of Future Forward?
Yeah, sure. Forward Future is a collaboration with myself, and Speech mentioned it just briefly before. Myself and Jai from Enemy Radio / Public Enemy. He was on Public Enemy's last album. He was on the BET side that they did with Rhapsody and Nas, and there was a few other guys on there. Black Soul. Yeah. Jai's done his thing. He hit me up and he loved my beats and wanted to collaborate. We did, and that because of that collaboration, that put me on Speech's radar, and which has been a blessing since. And yeah, so it's still out now. Go to actually, it's Bandcamp because it's different than my own. It's bandcamp.com/forwardfuture. And so you can cop that. But actually, the vinyl's coming out. It's going to come out beautiful green vinyl. That's going to drop, I believe, in March. So yeah, the vinyl, we're gearing up for the vinyl. So I'm working on the insert right now for the vinyl. So yeah, so actually, Arrested Development vinyl's coming out, and that's the first vinyl I've ever been involved with. And then following that by like a month or so, yeah. Then I've got we've got Forward Future. So yeah, literally 2 sets of vinyl in sort of the space of a few months from having none. That's crazy, right? So yeah.
And also, speaking of that as well, when you brought up Public Enemy a few moments ago, I also noticed as well via social media that you actually got a message from Chuck D himself. I have to ask you, when you opened your phone, man, and you saw that Chuck D hit you up, man, what was that feeling coming from a hip-hop head? Because I'm not going to lie, I'd probably pass out if Chuck D actually messaged me.
Well, it goes a bit deeper than that. I was actually signed to Chuck D's record label. So I was on Stab Jones Records, and so Chuck A&R had headhunted me, and so that was that message was sent around the time when I was being sort of I was literally signed to the record label, and I released an album through them, Configuration Volume 1, which features a lot of well-known people such as like Craig G's on there, Rex is on there, Spoonie G, the godfather of rap, Spoonie G. A guy who's not as well known, but is still a great guy, and still who should get his flowers, even though he passed way too young, saving someone else's life. John Vietnam, think of John Vietnam. Sean P's on there. Sean P. Wow, it's just loads of people on that album, man, and it's stacked. And that came out from Chuck's label. Chuck D himself was on there, so that was an extreme blessing. And so when Chuck said what he said, I don't want to gas myself too much by saying it, but yeah, when Chuck D described me as he described me, to come from someone who I consider to be the definition of hip-hop, along the lines of the KRS-One, it's crazy. Like, when someone who you consider to be hip-hop calls you the L word, the legend word, if you want, it's mind-boggling, because, I don't know, to me, Speech is a legend, Chuck D's a legend, KRS is a legend, but for someone to turn around and call me that word, it's like, what? I'm Andrew from Gateshead, and you next to Newcastle from the UK. That's just me. Like, I don't know. It's crazy. It's kind of disassociated and strange, but awesome all the same.
And also,
I have to agree with.
Oh, sorry about that speech. Go ahead. It's my apologies.
No problem. I happen to agree with that definition because, like Chuck D said in his compliment to Configure, he's put in the time. Like, Configure's not a legend just because it's nice to say that and it's complimentary to say it, but he's put in the time and the work, and even like our work ethic, me and him, he's one of the few dudes in my entire life that he matches my work ethic. Like, when I get in the studio, I put in work, and I put in time. And Configure will match that. Like, he'll put in time. And then when it comes to promoting the music, same difference. You know, I get out there and I promote. And Configure's the same way. He'll get out there and promote. So, like, those are things that make somebody a legend to me. If you do that year after year, despite the ups and downs of your career, and you still put out quality material and do all of that work. So.
Thank you very much, Bruce. That means a lot, man. That means a real lot. But I totally agree with you that there's so many people, a lot of artists who like the music making aspect, but they don't like the promotional aspect, and that aspect is vital because unless you promote the product, nobody's going to hear it. You know, you have to get out there, get your quote-unquote hand dirty, and yeah. So some people actually, just cut long story short, question why I'm on Twitter so much, and the answer is because there's a lot of people on there, and even though I've got fans in there, a lot of people who haven't discovered me or me will discover us, and
that's right.
I keep pushing out, and it's a big play, so why not?
Like, for instance, with my stuff, obviously I don't create music, but I create interviews and I create a radio station, so I do a lot of promoting as well. I've also had individuals get mad because I post too much. They actually had people from my hometown actually delete me, but I'm like, whatever, you got to promote it. You know, you got to shove it down people's throats. You got to make sure they see it.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree with you.
And also, on September 25th, Arrested Development actually released the brand new album by the name of Don't Fight Your Demons. I have to ask you, what is the story about that? And of course, what was it like for both of you guys to be able to work on that record together?
Well, the story behind it was really this concept of the things you're trying to fight in your life. Instead of fighting it and it comes back, and fighting it and it comes back, sometimes it's necessary for us to sit down and have a discussion with these demons that are in your life and find out what trauma from your past is making those demons so effective in your life as far as covering the trauma. So the whole album sort of deals with a lot of my demons, things that I'm going through. And from a creative standpoint, it really, really, really was just like Configure said earlier in this interview, we met up. I already liked his beats that he did with his project with Future Forward Future. So I already liked that project, and so I was like, yo, let's see what we could do together. And we started one track at a time, just started messing with stuff. And like you said, our sensibilities with hip hop were so similar that it was really just a match made in heaven. So
I believe so. I totally believe that. Totally agree. Yeah.
And when you guys said as well that you have vinyls out, like, I have to ask you, are they available for pre-order or are they already available to the general public to purchase?
Pre-order.
All right, most definitely. So everybody that is listening, make sure you pre-order yourselves a copy today.
Yeah. I believe that the AB one is coming out in January, I think.
Exactly. It's out in 2021 January, yeah. Which is only a month from now, yeah.
That's not even long. Not at all.
And also, guys, directly after this interview commences, I'm actually going to be spinning your guys' brand new single titled Anya. I was wondering if you could actually tell our listeners a bit more about that song and what's the story behind it. That way, if the individuals haven't heard it already, they can wrap their head around the meaning just a little bit more.
Yeah, well, Anya was a song that I wrote with a producer named Bombsart, which I love the beat. I wanted to do this song about the elections that were coming up, and I felt that it was a very time-sensitive record. So I sent it to Configure because I tend to bounce ideas off of Configure here and there just because I really respect his opinion. And he's the type that will give me an honest opinion, which I respect. So I bounced it off of him. He said, man, I like the beat, but it has to grow on me. And he sent this remix. He did another beat to it. And it was crazy. And I was like, yo, that is so boom bap. It's so gutter, like, not gutter like the genre of music, but just sort of raw. And so we ended up using his remix, and I got a couple other friends, great guys, do some remixes and put it out. And I'm really proud of it. And I did like a teaser video to it, which is Bananas. It's so beautiful. It's so poetic. And just really proud of it. So it's called Anya.
And I have to say, it is a phenomenal song. It really is. I've been playing it here on the radio station since MJ actually sent it our way, and I have to say, it is absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you, man. We appreciate that. Thank you.
And I have to ask both of you guys, what is next? Oh, sorry about that, Configure.
That's all good, man. That's all I have to say. Both versions are very different, yet equally awesome. If I do say so myself, like, just to bring out, the first version was obviously more trap orientated, but obviously the second version is me, the horns, and like kind of like getting in that sort of mid-90s flow, early to mid-90s, and just, bringing out, I think that Speech's just flow was crazy in that entire track. I mean, obviously, what do you think? Do you think that Speech's flow was crazy on that track? Like, not many people would associate the guy from Arrested Development flowing like that, like lyrical, just sharp. And I keep preaching about this in every interview, but I do believe that my mind is like should be in a conversation when people talk about legends and talk about the goats. And Speech should be there in the conversation. That's my firm belief. More so through working with him, more than anything. Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
And also, I have to ask both of you guys, what is next for Speech and Configure? Like, is there anything I missed during this interview? Anything else you still want to promote? Will we still have you here live on 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM?
Well, definitely, you want to get Don't Fight Your Demons. And then, ironically, me and Configure have been working on a whole new project for 2021. So, it's incredible. Like, to me, it starts where Don't Fight Your Demons leaves off and goes further. So I think it's hot.
It does.
And I think it's incredible. And, so we're just continuing to create together and take advantage of this moment in time where everything is just really, gelling together well, and we're doing great music together and appreciate that and breathe it in and really just live in that moment of creativity together. So it's great.
And I just need to say because Speech is not touring right now, and I've said this before in a few interviews, that it's awesome to have this access to him and to get in this creative flow where his attention is obviously not diverted by touring in different countries, different time zones and continents and stuff, to like have this like Speech is in a creative mind frame constantly is just being wow. Like I said, we work fast and like bang out 2 albums in the space of a few months. It's wild, but albums of the highest quality, and that's why people have been saying Don't Fight Your Demons is at least on a par, if not better than the debut, than the Arrested Development debut, which is mind blowing to me because that's what I grew up on.
I agree. It's mind blowing to me too. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for Speech too much, but I don't think he thought that was going to happen again. Like to almost be in a conversation with all the fans, saying that, or in reviewers, like this is possibly better. Because that's the classic. That's the sort of like the hallmark of a classic album. So to even get at that level is crazy.
I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
And also, Configure, Speech, this is the time in the interview that I give a chance for the individual that comes on the radio station, just a chance to give shoutouts to whomever they want to give shoutouts to, and of course your social media handles. That way listeners can find you and follow you and stay updated on all your newest projects if they're not already doing so.
Word up. You want to start off, Configure?
Okay, bro. yeah, hit me up, everybody, on at Configa, CONFIGA, on everywhere, basically Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Yeah, just hit me up, Configa.com, LabelOnMedia.com. Yeah, I'm there. Yeah, I'm an ever-present. I've been in social media game for a long time. Yeah, and don't fight your demons. We're still pushing it, and it's still relevant, and it will be for a long time. Yeah, and buy Anya as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to.
Oh, I'm gonna do that. Sorry, brother.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just say, shout out to everybody who supported me in speech, in the rest development, and the album. Big up the Config Army. Big up everybody from back home, Newcastle Gateshead. Big up who else am I going to big up without being too generalized about it? Well, just big up everybody that's been showing me love. Fans, friends, just everybody, man. Yeah, big up speech. Big up the main man speech for giving me the shot. For hearing me on the record with Jahi. And basically, you know, extending the path to me to get connected with him, to make this great music that he's making. Yeah, just props to everybody at Vagabond as well. Big up Mike, everybody. Oh, and big up Tony Arnold as well, Media Tonight. Big ups.
Yeah, like all the people that Configa just mentioned, I want to shout out Configa. I want to shout out my man Daryl Perry, who's been one of the biggest supporters of this record. Don't Fight Your Demons. He's been pushing it like crazy. My staff is Vagabond Records, and they, you know, Tiffany, Yolanda, Mike, all of them have just been soldiers, you know, for this music. Of course, the Arrested Development members from One Love, Farida, you know, Tasha LaRae, and Will, and everybody from the crew, and then, of course, the old school crew as well, which I shout out on this album already. And, yeah, it's just a bunch of Chuck D. I want to shout him out just for all his love.
Chuck D.
Yep, Chuck D. Hip Hop Gods, and, you know, Hip Hop Gods Radio has been really pumping it up. LL Cool J and the whole Rock the Bells movement. Shout out my man June Archer from This Is 50. They've been rocking it hard. Exactly. So a lot of people have been on it, and really appreciate it to all of them. And then my social media handles is @speech__. Everywhere you go, @speech__. And ArrestedDevelopmentMusic.com is the website.
And I gotta say, first and foremost, Speech, right before I let you guys go, I gotta say thank you so much for just everything that you've done for the music industry, man. You helped create some of the most influential records of all time. I remember when I was younger, and I ended up copying my first copy of 3 Years, 5 Months, and I have to say it was one of my favorite records that Arrested Development ever put together. Still to this day, is one of my favorites of all time. So thank you so much for just, you know, helping me through a lot of my difficult times during my life.
And that means the world to me. It never gets old. I appreciate that, man. Thanks.
You are most certainly welcome. Configa, thank you so much, man, for just putting together an amazing new Arrested Development record, man. You know, you're a talented individual. Keep up the hustle, and I'm looking forward to both of you guys dropping new projects soon.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much.
You're most certainly welcome. Speech, Configa, have yourselves a wonderful night, and most definitely stay safe in both the continents that you're currently in.
Yes, you too, brother. Stay strong.
There you go.